Hello, this is Hollisa Alewine. Welcome back to our study in Workbook 2 of the Creation Gospel. We're studying the 7 abominations of the wicked lamp. And now we have arrived at the 4th seal of Revelation, which is associated with the release of the pale horse. And of course, you know, it's also spawned off, I'm sure, lots of movies like Pale Rider or whatever. But what we saw in the last lesson is that the colors of these horses were rooted in the different colors of leprosy. And we can be even more specific about that. We just have to remember that even though they come out in colors of white, red, black, and then pale or ashen, and then as we saw more specifically, yellowish green. This horse is a yellowish green color, and it'll have dapples on it. It'll have like white hail marks, is literally the way it's described in Hebrew. But when we're thinking about the pale horse, when we're thinking about this yellowish green color of death, you're first going to see the signs of that death. It's not the first thing you see. The first thing you see looks pretty good. It looks white. And the next thing you see, it might be red. And then the next thing you see, it might be a nice healthy black. But then in these colors, you'll realize, now wait a minute. Each of these colors is a manifestation of some aspect of death. And if we look in detail at the leper's examination, they're often looking for white things, white hairs or white flesh. They're often looking for red in the flesh. They're often looking for black hair. So each of these has a lesson to teach us. The yellowish green right here, again, it's the color of leprosy, that yellowish green color hair around your beard or your head. But remember, this is the side of the word where people are in disobedience. If we take that back over to the side of life, then each of these colors can represent something of life. Just like this yellowish green, this tzahov, it means yellowish, but tzahav is gold. Where's the first mention of gold? The first mention of gold is in the rivers of Eden. And it says there's good gold there. So that shows you the two destinations. You've got the good gold of restoration and resurrection to the garden, standing over against tzahov, which is the yellowish green of death. It would be outside the garden. It would be to be separated from the garden. You've got the black and the red. Even though you're seeing in here the black and the red and the white as colors of leprosy, or they can signify that, but there's also evidence of these colors within the rivers of Eden, in the place of resurrection, the place of the garden. We know that Cush, remember the Cushite woman? Like, it was a big deal to bring her into the conversation with Aaron and Miriam. Moses had married a Cushite wife. Well, the Cushite has black skin. If we read about her in the Song of Songs, she says, you know, don't hate me because I'm black, I'm lovely. The first mention of Cush is right here in the rivers of Eden. So it represents a people as well who are part of this good gold, and their skin is black. What does it mean it's black? Well, it's black because she says, I'm burned black by the sun. And if we're working for the kingdom, remember we had two things we were supposed to do. We were supposed to work the garden, and we were supposed to guard the garden. If we work in the garden, the representative color there, as it's described in Song of Songs, is black. Black signifies that we're out there working, we're actively working in the garden. And then it says red. You know, we've got the red horse here, and there's a color of leprosy that's like this red, living flesh. And it's living, but it's like only in the respect that the outside has opened up and it's exposed the living or the quick part that's inside. In other words, the part of us that should be inside is now outside. There's a reversal of the way that we should look in the spiritual world. And so the priest can look for that and say, oh no, that's something supposed to be inside your skin. That's not supposed to be outside your skin. It's reversed. Well, the nefesh itself, the soul, its representative color is red, adom. In fact, Esau is adom. He represents the soul, the nefesh. He's called the red one. And so if that red living part of you is exposed outside, then that's not where it's supposed to be. The soul's supposed to be inside. And so that living part of us has somehow been not just exposed, but it's been irritated. There's been some provocation here where the soul is sticking out in places that it shouldn't be. It's not disciplined. It's not within its boundary of skin. And that's often what the soul does do. It breaks out of its boundary and tries to boss the spirit around, when actually the spirit is supposed to boss the soul around. And so the evidence of it might be when it just bursts out of the skin. It's just so big and proud, it bursts right out. And then you've got the white. You've got the white color of the horse. You've got the white hairs that are a problem. And, you know, if we think of that on the bad side, yes, it's a sign of leprosy. But just like with the red, if the red is inside, if your soul is inside where it should be, if it's within the boundaries, that's good. It's good. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's keeping you alive within its boundary. But with the white hair, you know, if you see this white hair in the wrong place and it's described as kind of a translucent kind of white, that white hair can be a sign of leprosy. But on the good side of things, we know that white is also a symbol of age and the Ancient of Days, the wisdom of the Ancient of Days. So we also saw this white light, like a skin of light, that Adam and Eve had. They were said to have had these, what we would consider supernatural skins of light, like a white light radiating from them. We saw that in Moses' face. He had this radiant countenance. And then in the book of Revelation, we also know that the Lamb, that Yeshua, his hair is like wool. It's like white wool. He's like the Ancient of Days. And so we can find the positive if we look at these same colors and we say, you know what, we are dwelling on the right side of the Word. We're dwelling in obedience to the Word. Then these same colors can represent things of life. If we're living contrary to the Word, then those colors can represent skin affliction, an affliction in the hair, that things simply aren't where they should be. Things are exposed that shouldn't be. So if we contrast that Edenic picture in the colors of the horses, then it makes sense why the leper, the one afflicted with tsarat, in biblical times, was put outside of the camp, if that makes sense. If we see the rivers of Eden as encompassing the camp of Israel, representing that, the good gold, the Cushite, the radiance of the white light, the soul contained where it should be, not dominating the spirit, all of these things in a proper place in the body of Messiah, then you can see why if you were afflicted with tsarat If these things were out of order and out of bounds, why you would be put outside of the camp, which is exactly what Adam and Eve were. They were put outside of the camp. They had problems. They had some breakouts. And therefore, you know, what you do is it says that when you move outside of the holy camp, if you see somebody coming, you have to cover your lips. Your lips. Doesn't say cover your eyes, it says cover your lips. Cover that mouth up. And you have to declare, tameh, tameh, unclean, unclean. The source of the problem here, the words that you've been speaking out, unclean words have been coming out of you, and now you're outside the camp, you're outside the garden, you're in that place of unclean spirits and demons and unclean and hateful birds, as it's described. And because you're out there in that unclean place, you take those false witnessing lips. Remember, that's the 6th abomination. You take those false witnessing lips and you say, unclean, unclean. And what does that say? You chose your captivity. You chose your prison. You chose your Babylon. You were more comfortable with the practices of Babylon. The red, going back to the red horse, there is a raw aspect of leprosy, where there's a rawness in your flesh. That Hebrew word there is chai. Chai. And you probably used that Hebrew word before. Some of you might have a chai necklace. It's got the Hebrew letter chet with a yod. Chai, it means life. And it describes this rawness as chai, that it's life. But the problem is, even though it normally refers to something in the realm of life, in the case of leprosy, the soul itself, the red one, has popped out in a place where it shouldn't be. And so the life that's in the blood, the nefesh that's in the blood, has overpowered that light of the skin. Now let's just take one step back. Remember, we said in the garden they had supernatural skins? You can hear that in the play on word between or and or. There is an or of light. It literally means light. There is a sound-alike word, just spelled differently, that means skin. So if you say or, if you don't know the context, you don't know whether you're talking about light or skin. It's play on words like that clue us in. And so if the skin, has been overpowered by this red stuff, by the part of you that should be living inside, then the color, this red raw flesh, it's somehow the skin, somehow the light has not been able to cover it. In fact, that the color of skin, levan, white, it can be healthy white skin. But then on the other side of the menorah, there's levana. There's a color white that is the color of the bricks that the Babylonians baked in order to build Nimrod's tower, the Tower of Babel. They said they were going to reach into the heavens. They were going to be like God. They were going to lift themselves above the height of the clouds. They were going to sit on the Mount of the Moed. And the tool that they were using to try to dominate the Mount of the Moed by building this other structure, they used levana. And that's white. It comes from levan, which is white. Just like you can have healthy, white skin in the examination. But if there's levana, there's rebellion. Because that's exactly what the Babylonians were doing. They were rebelling against the authority of heaven, which again, that's at the axis. So we've got yellow, the color of gold. We've got yellow, the color of sickness. We can even take real gold and we can invite greed and envy with it. It's not the good gold that's described in the garden. This is gold that evokes greed, and we even say green with envy. If people have more gold, if they have more stuff than we do, then we can become envious. When we become envious, then we're not good gold. Because if you've ever seen gold that's not pure, that if it's got a high degree of impurities in it, other metals, then if you put that gold on as jewelry, you might take that gold off later and then you might have a green circle. And if you have that green circle, yeah, it could just be a skin reaction, but it also might be a sign that whatever you paid for that gold, it was too much, because there's way more stuff in there than gold. That's not exactly what you paid for. And that's what people find out when these writers go out and they're taking these judgments out into the earth. They're finding that the commercial system of the king of Babylon, they got way more than they bargained for by getting sucked into that commercial system. And so they might have thought they bought this beautiful 24 karat gold, but they're going to find that there's an impurity, that there's some green circles on their fingers, because that's how the king of Babylon works. He works in bait. And so it's an important part of preventive maintenance. If you have precious metals, you need to recognize early if there's corrosion. Some things are, you've got a pretty good product here, but metal does have to be maintained. You know what happens to your silver if you don't wear it? If it doesn't get that friction, then it'll tarnish on you. And so you might have good things. You might be good gold. But good gold is good gold, and it shines because it's in use. It's not stuck out in the weather somewhere. It's not ignored. It's not taken into places of corrosion and decay. It's worn. It's used. It's polished. And it's through the friction that we get that high shine, especially with silver. And so if you get something that's a beautiful, shiny metal, it's not going to just stay in that condition over time. Gold might retain most of its sheen. Platinum might retain most of its sheen for a long time. But you have to check. Again, it's like the examination for leprosy. You as a human being, you should be a good product. But if the rust starts to set in on the gold, something needs to be checked. And it needs to be checked before it advances. Is there adulteration with copper? Well, can we adulterate our spiritual lives with other things? Sure. Can we try to introduce other metals into something that's pure? Sure. There's all sorts of things that can happen, and we're told in Scripture that we're not supposed to lay up riches where moth and rust corrupt. And so no matter what you have, there rust can set in. Moths can ruin a garment. Think about that. We've talked about garments in preparation for the seals and how the garments you put on do matter. Well, what if you did put on that beautiful garment for the wedding? Or what if you purchased that beautiful garment for the wedding? You put a lot of effort into it, but then, as time went on, you just kind of stuck it in a drawer and you didn't do anything else with it. You just left it there and you're like, well, when the date arrives, I'll take it out and I'll run an iron over it. And then the time for the wedding comes, and you're like, oh, let me get this out right quick. And you pull the garment out. You haven't worked on it in a long time. You should have this beautiful robe of righteousness. And what you realize is moths have eaten holes all through it. You can't just set out on the road to righteousness and take long breaks. It says that's not who you are. It's consistency is important. Use is important. And that's what the affliction of leprosy can do for us. It can expose to us those things that are coming through the wall of the house. It can expose to us places where maybe we're sitting that we shouldn't be. Where is that camel saddle taking me that I shouldn't be going? It can expose the things in my skin. It can expose pride. It can expose evil speech. The Ruach is alive in us, and our spiritual lives need use. And whether we like it or not, and we don't like it, but whether we like it or not, our spiritual lives need friction. And you say, well, I think I'm about up to here with friction right now. Okay, yes, that might be a sign of the times. We really are up to here with friction, but we've not seen the worst of the tribulation. And as the tribulation increases, so will have to be our ability to handle the friction and stay luminous, to stay radiant, to take that friction in our spiritual lives and make sure that the moths don't eat the garments because we just got tired of doing good things. Well, this Shabbat thing's just really getting in my way. I mean, it's messing with my family reunion. It's messing with my annual sale. It's messing with my annual vacation. I mean, it's just messing up my whole calendar. Why do we have to be so rigid? Why do we have to be so obsessive about Shabbat? Maybe you should ask yourself, why do you need to be so obsessive about Shabbat? And what sort of transaction needs to go on in your heart to renew the love of your betrothal? When you fell in love with Shabbat, when you couldn't wait for Shabbat, when every week you learned something new about Shabbat, when you made mess-ups on Shabbat and you got that friction that polished you up in that area. When did your love for Shabbat die? When did it deserve to be put in a drawer? When did you hang it up in the darkest corner of the closet? When did Passover get boring? When did Sukkot become an inconvenience? Because, the family vacation, that took up this many days, and, that Sukkot thing, it's going to take way too many. When did that happen? How did it happen? That's how leprosy comes. It comes with little eruptions. It comes with little breakouts in the plaster of the house. It comes with a little spot of mold or mildew. Little things. And if you don't have the friction, see, it's actually the friction that keeps us so, yes, obsessed about keeping commandments. If it weren't for the friction, it may not be that big a deal. But Yeshua said, blessed are we, because there were a people who saw him and believed. But he said, so many people are going to not see me, and they're still going to believe. And they're going to go through this friction in their lives. And this friction in their lives is going to prevent the appearance of tzarat. They're not going to be lepers when I return. They might have problems, but they won't have that problem. They're going to learn how to repent when they see these little breakouts. They're going to be willing to go through that progressive process. It's a long haul. It's doing things sometimes when you don't feel like doing them. But if you will go ahead and do them, you will be glad that you did them, because there was a way of growing. The friction was a way of polishing you. So don't feel like it's just thrown away if I did it, but I didn't really feel like doing that commandment, but I did it anyway. Even that friction is polishing you. And it's allowing your true colors to shine through. And when we look at leprosy, remember, you might have red, you might have yellow, you might have green, you might have white. You can have manifestations of all these colors of leprosy. And you say, what's that mean? Well, again, they're places where, because it has to do with the skin, there are places where you're choosing to do things that are covering up the light. And remember the play on words with light and skin? So if you think of maybe a little piece of gossip, okay, it's like you took a little paintbrush, like kids have, and maybe you swirled it around there in the green and the yellow, and then you walked up to a light bulb and you went, and you just flicked that paint right up on the light bulb. Well, you can still see light coming out of the light bulb, but what has that paint done? There's some of the light that's not getting through. And so when we gossip, when we use evil speech, there is light in us that little bit of leprosy, that little bit of tsarat, that little mark right there, all the light that we could be giving is not getting through. It's not able to come through our skin. What if you're having a pride issue? Well, just dip that paintbrush in a little bit of red, swirl it around in there, and then it's like, bam, put that on a light bulb. Okay, you've just seen what pride will do to the light that you can radiate into the world. That now part of the radiance that should be coming out of your skin, your testimony of the glory of Yeshua, now some of the glory of Yeshua that is in you has just now been blocked. You've blocked it. That's what leprosy is showing us, how we block the light of salvation that should be shining out of us, how we block the light of redemption, how we block the light of all the things that we are called to be. That's how it happens. That's the best visual I can give you to help you understand what's happening. And so, no, we may not see it as literal leprosy anymore. We may not be receiving that divine judgment, but that is exactly what we are doing. We are occluding the light of Yeshua. We are occluding the light of the Torah that should be shining out of us. We are occluding the light of the commandment. And so our light becomes dimmer and dimmer and dimmer to the point where it's like, depending on how much leprosy you have, they're not going to be able to see you much at all. But maybe that's the problem. They'll see you, they won't see Yeshua at all. And so this fourth horse, if we go to Zechariah 6:3, this pale horse is described as dappled instead of pale. That's barod. It has to do with hail, hail like frozen water. And so it looks like in a dapple horse, like there's white patches on him. And so those spots or marks, the subtext there is judgment, because hail is a judgment. It was a plague of Egypt. And so the marks, the spots on this dappled yellowish green horse, he's got the marks not just of uncleanness, but he's searching for those who have the same marks. And so the only really good test the priest had is to look for a nice dark hair growing in the spot where he thought leprosy might have been. If there's healing, if there's good health, the color shachor, and shachor is a contronym. It means darkness and the first light of dawn. If he could see that little black hair in there, he could say there's been a turnaround. They were headed into darkness, but now the dawn is coming. They've seen the light here. They've quit throwing paint on the light bulb. It's a promise, healing emerging from darkness. And that's where we want to live. We want to live within the rivers of Eden. We want to shine the radiance of that garden into the world. We don't want to be gossips. We don't want to be slanderers. We don't want to be proud. We want to live according to the light of Yeshua. And that's what this pale horse is teaching us.